Hey, welcome back, kids and kittens. I think I ripped that off from one of the UK out there. But this is another adventure, another video of Dick and Norm's movie talk. Now, Dick and Norm hasn't done one of these in well over a year. This is our sixth, and we're going to concentrate on music. So we got Norm and Dick. Welcome, Dick.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey, Dick. Okay.
Dick's hanging in there.
I'm sure Dick is. Now, what we're going to do in this one, since we want to stick with the spirit of the vinyl community and records and music, so we picked 10 music-related movies, basically documentaries, concert films, biopic, whatever we wanted, 10 each, back and forth. We don't know what the other one's picking. Did you, were you inspired? Did you pull from your deep catalog? You have a lot of videos, Dick.
Yeah, I think in the 90s, I wasn't buying many records. Some CDs, but not a heck of a lot. I was buying a lot of bootleg DVDs and just a lot of, legit DVDs. So yeah, I do have a lot.
Okay, well, we're going to go back and forth. We don't know what each other's going to show. I decided to, I'm going to let you go first, but I just wanted to preface by saying I kind of didn't want to go with the typical like Concert for Bangladesh and The Last Waltz and A Hard Day's Night, the same old friggin' movie shit. Now, maybe you did. I'm not going to disparage you for that, but I picked some. I mean, there's a couple obvious ones, but let's just go for it. So, Dick,
Yeah,
start out,
okay.
Dick.
All right. I went with 10 documentaries.
Okay.
And this first one is definitely the documentary that I've watched the most out of all that I own. I watched it at the theater twice when it came out, and it is The Decline of Western Civilization, the LA punk movie from the 79 era. And I think it came out in 1980. Fantastic. It's got the X, it's got the Circle Jerks, Fear, Black Flag, Catholic Discipline. But now this one here is a bootleg
Oh,
because this one
copyright.
didn't come. This movie did not come out for decades,
No, that's
and
Penelope
I
Spheres.
did get
Oh, okay.
this box set that has all three of them. There was. Go ahead.
What was that? Penelope Spheres. You got to give
Yeah,
credit to the
it was
director.
her first movie, actually, I believe.
Okay,
The
right.
first one was. But yeah, you got Decline, Volume 1 is the punk. Then the second one was the metal years. And then the third one was kind of like these street punks. I think the metal years one is the weakest of the bunch. The the third one, the street punks, the bands aren't that well known, but it's a pretty touching film. And it gets, there's one point where it's kind of sad. But yeah, I think that it's got great footage, concert footage in it. The Germs and the Black Flag and the Fear footage are, I think, fantastic. So that's my first choice.
I saw the first one in the theater when it came out. I remember that. I just loved it. I realized I never saw the metal one. I never saw it. So,
Yeah, I don't think
well, the
that's it's
third.
a your it's.
Well,
I actually met Penelope Spears at Al's bar once. She was pretty nice.
well, during the pandemic, the archivist turned me on to watching these videos. There's a sort of a documentary, and I forgot what band it was. Is it Iron Maiden fans? One of those bands are all in the parking lot talking about the bands. And it's a famous thing about, I want to say Iron Maiden. It's a metal band.
Oh, you mean in the parking lot?
Yeah, you know that
That yeah, the Judas Priest.
Judas Priest. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have that. I have
I
that.
loved I loved watching those. Those were
Yeah,
I had never seen them. They kind of flew by me, but I will watch documentaries on any artist. I don't really care. Mine's a
yeah.
little more produced. I'm going to start with a documentary too, then. And this is one that I never saw in a theater. I don't know. This is the time. It's only a few years old. This is probably from 2015 originally. Okay, and this is Lambert and Stamp. And this is a great documentary, The Who's Lambert and Stamp. And this is about Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp. Now, Kit Lambert was, these were the two guys that weren't really managers. They were kind of two posh English dudes. I hate to say dudes, but top two posh English gents that ended up managing the Who and really pushed them forward. Started the label Track Records with Pete Townsend. Of course, not only did they put out the Who records like Tommy, they put out the Jimi Hendrix records, the Arthur Brown first record. And this is a documentary on them. Of course, Lambert also produced Tommy. Chris Stamp is the brother of the actor Terrence Stamp. This is a great documentary because there's a lot of footage of the Who playing. There's they talk about obviously the whole management style and how they came about it, archival footage, recent interviews with Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey. It's a really a good documentary on the music business about these two guys. There they are right there, Stamp and Lambert and Stamp. Great documentary.
I've never heard of that one.
You like it. You like that period. You like that kind of
stuff. When you said they produced Tommy, did they produce the album or that movie from the 70s?
Well, okay. I wonder who produced the movie, because that was what's his name? Kurt Russell?
Ken Russell. Yeah.
Ken Russell. Not Kurt Russell. That's Ken Russell, but they produced Kit Lambert produced those Who albums around that time, including Tommy, and he really pushed Pete Townsend to form it. So he really was a major collaborator in editing and putting the thing together. That because that was a major thing at the time. Everyone thinks the Who are always so big. They weren't really big like the Beatles and the Stones then. In fact, 8 Miles High. I always forget 8 Miles High, but Who Can See for Miles to me is their best single from my point of view, and it never hit #1. It should have been a #1 record and never did. So
yeah. That might have been the first song that I remember hearing on the radio. I like that song, and I also like Happy Jack a lot.
Happy Jack, Magic
But
Bus.
yeah, they only had a couple of singles in the U.S. that kind of charted at all.
Yeah, they never really
maybe 3 or 4.
They never made it here until Tommy. I mean, that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, Who sell out in a way, but it wasn't.
But I don't think it was a top seller here.
No, it wasn't. No. All right, Dick.
Now, when we decided we're going to do this, I actually watched 4 because just to, I should have, if I had time, I would have watched all of these. But one of the ones that I just watched 2 days ago is The Gets. And that's a Seattle band. You know this documentary? Oh my God, you would love this. It's a Seattle band. They were originally called the Rat-Faced Sniveling Gits. And it's taken from a Monty Python skit.
I love that title.
And it documents, I think they went to college in Indiana University or something, and they decided to go to Seattle. They were kind of parallel to the grunge scene in the late 80s, early 90s, but they were more in line with the Girl Riot, like 7 Year Bitch and bands like that. But yeah, this is while I was watching this, my wife, she was in and out doing stuff. And then it got to a certain point in the documentary. I don't know, should I do spoilers? I mean,
okay. It's a documentary. It's not like it's
yeah.
This isn't the sixth.
So it got to this one point of the documentary where I stopped it and I called my wife, and she came in and I pushed play, and I go, "You remember the lady that was singing and in this movie?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I go, "That's her right there." And it was a dead body on the street. And what happened is this singer from this band got murdered.
Oh God.
And it goes into the police suspected it was one of her friends that did it, and it just kind of killed that whole scene. And it's a great
that happened in Seattle. That was a death.
Yes.
In Seattle?
Yeah, it happened in Seattle. I suggest I know you would like this.
Yeah.
It starts out kind of everybody's praising the Gits like they were the best band ever, and that is a little over the top because I mean, like you've never even heard of them, so they weren't. But yeah, and another thing,
I know the whole phrase. It's a British for like "you stupid git." It's a
Yeah. But yeah, you would like this. They were a really good band. They're really good musicians. She had a very unique, not quite Janis Joplin, but a real gritty voice, not your typical punk rock singer. and her name was Zia Zapata, and she was related to the revolutionary guy in Mexico. And yeah. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if people out there know who Stunt Rock Confusion is, but they interview a lot of people, but they interview the two of the people from 7-Year Bitch, and the drummer's in this quite a bit, and she's the one that Stunty lost his virginity to.
Well, what do you know? We're gonna have to do like maybe a trade out. We'll like the 3 movies that we like from each other's, mail them to each other as a trade for a month or whatever, and just to kind of
Yeah,
trade that
that
like
would
a
be.
checkout. I think well that's a tragic story, and at least it's
Yeah.
like breaking, that
And you know what? It happened in 1994, and in 2004, they arrested a suspect with a saliva DNA match. And it was actually the first time the saliva DNA had ever been used in a Seattle trial.
wow.
And it's I mean, I kind of teared up when they were showing because there was cameras in the courtroom, and you could see the band and some of her friends in the courtroom, and it's an emotional documentary.
Wow. Well, I'm going to stick with something that can be uplifting and kind of sad at the same time. And this is If I Should Fall from Grace, a documentary, the Shane MacGowan story. And of course, Shane MacGowan was a lead singer and primary writer for the Pogues, who we just lost in the last, year or two also. I mean, him and Sinead O'Connor, 2 Irish. Now, the Pogues were a London band with Irish roots, definitely, and they were coming out of the punk scene. They had a punk side, but they had a real Irish kind of pub sound, and they were an incredible band. And he's an incredible poet, incredible songwriter. This is not only a great song about the ups and downs of a musician who kind of went into alcoholism, and this is also a promotion of a kind of a poster child for good and bad dentistry, if you know about his teeth thing. And I don't make I'm making light of that, but it's something that was it's basically a prominent in this documentary, and him at the later stages with his wife, wife, who became his wife, and who really took care of him the last few years up and through his death. I mean, he's a national treasure in England and in Ireland, obviously. But this gets into the music. I mean, obviously, one of the greatest Christmas songs ever is that song that he wrote, Fairy Tale in Christmas in New York, Fairy Tale in New York, with him and Christy McCall, who also died, she died tragically at a separate thing. He didn't die tragically.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, she got basically, they were swimming and this motorboat was coming along. He tried to save her kids, and the blades killed her, and she saved her 2 kids, unfortunately.
Wow.
This is a wonderful.
Hey, Norm, who knew this video was going to be all about death?
This is a tragic. A lot of dead people in this video. I mean, come on. I mean, let's talk about tragedy. Someone's going to say you're mocking the death, these great artists. I mean, come on. Dick and Norm do whatever we fucking want, right, Dick?
Yeah, I apologize for the gardener.
Did the gardener with his shears? Is that something? Anyway, there's several documentaries. I think there's another documentary. This is the only one I've seen. And when did this come out? What year is this? I don't even know what year this is, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, this was made before he died, but a lot of great music in here. Nick Cave, he collaborated with as well, and some great people. But Shane MacGowan and the friggin' Pogues, great records.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a documentary on them. I don't know if it's that one or not. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. He was actually in a punk band before the Pogues, and they released a 7-inch.
I forgot who. Yeah, I forgot.
I forgot the name. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone's writing it right now in the comments, yelling, "You don't guys do this stuff and you don't research it."
Yeah, we don't research.
We wing it. We wing it.
I don't. Yeah, we wing it, and I know you do the same.
Yeah, we watch the movies, but I haven't watched that in about a year. That's the last time.
Yeah. Now this is one I watched yesterday, and it's before there was punk, there was a band called Death, Are you familiar with this one?
I've seen it, but I've never seen the
Oh,
movie.
this is another one you would. This one is really this one. The Gifts one is good, but I think this one might be put together a little better. It's these guys. I think these three, they're brothers, biological brothers in Detroit, and they formed this band in '74, and they were playing. Some of it's hard rock, but some of it is definitely it's punk. So these guys are definitely one of the first punk bands ever, and they released one single, but they couldn't get anywhere. I mean, they were offered some lucrative record deals, but they always told them they had to change the name. They wouldn't sign them with the name Death. And the main guy, David, he's kind of a spiritual guy, and he refused. And the other two brothers, the younger brothers, were kind of like, "Come on, dude, you know this." But yeah, it's a really good documentary. And then I guess in the 2000s, people start discovering the 7-inch. Jello Biafra came across a copy, and some other people. And then this one of I think it's the bass player's sons. He moved to San Francisco, and one of his friends goes, "Hey, dude, you got to check out this single I just found." And it was the band Death. And his friend put it on. He said he recognized his dad's voice right away.
I've
He
heard
goes,
this
"What the
story.
fuck?" And then he looked, and it said written by David Hackney, which was
His
the
father.
older brother. So he called his dad up, and he goes, "Dad, were you in a band called Death?" And then he told him the name of the songs, and the dad goes, "Yeah, that's me." And he goes, "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" And finally, word got around, and the album got released. And yeah, it's a very uplifting story, this one.
I've heard that story. I don't know if have you told that before with that video in
I
that,
may have a long, long
or was
time
that
ago.
Maybe Lionel Richie did, not Dick. So it could be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it could have been that Vinyl Richie guy.
I'm going with a concert film now, but it's a concert film that was made to be filmed in a with a live audience. Not unlike Stop Making Sense. You know, obviously that would have been a good choice, but that's been so overplayed in a way. It's great, great, you know, Talking Heads. But I really like this a lot because
Before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt,
no, that's
but
okay.
you're
We
used
interrupt
to
each
it.
other. It's all right.
Yeah, the Stop Making Sense, I believe, was recorded at the Roxy in Hollywood. Like I think 3 days or so before that, I saw them at the Long Beach Convention Center, and it was a mind-blowing concert, man. It was really very visual, spectacular. I mean, it was just a visual and a sound. It was one of the better concerts I've been to.
Yeah, I didn't see that period, but I've seen Talking Heads a few times. But anyway, I want to show this. Roy Orbison, Black and White Night. This is a great film. This was shot in a club in LA. I wanted to say it's something like I forgot where it was shot. I forgot where it was shot, but it is an all-star cast and of musicians, and I think T-Bone Burnett arranged it. This is a period when Roy Orbison had his huge comeback. Obviously, his music used in Blue Velvet, and there was a sort of a best of him re-recording the songs that David Lynch produced, ironically. And of course, Jeff Lynne took him, did a record with him, and of course, the Traveling Wilburys and all that. But this is a concert, and it has almost all his hits of the time. But in here is Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, Jackson Browne, J.D. Souther, Jennifer Warnes, Tom Waits, Bonnie Raitt, God, I mean, Katie Lang. It's filmed beautifully, obviously transferred or I probably shot in video and transferred to black and white. And it's in a club and there's an audience. You got the ambient of it's just not a dead room, you know, and uh, Springsteen doing harmonies with them, Jackson Browne, obviously the Bonnie Raitt and J.D. Souther and Katie Lang. It's just a beautiful film. It's amazing at his age here, and he wasn't even that old, probably in his 60s, but still, his voice was still pitch perfect at that age. You know, you hear the Wilburys and you hear that last thing Jeff Lynne did, but this is a fantastic. This is from It came out. This is like the late '80s, I believe. This is 1999. This video when it came out on CD, DVD, and it's a fabulous performance in concert. So there you go.
Yeah, I was never really a big Roy Orbison fan, but I did see that on MTV in the '80s, and it isn't just nicely shot in the black and white, but the music was actually really good.
It's really well done. Great arrangements. Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. My turn.
Dick.
All right.
Come on, Dick.
This is a great documentary. It's end of the century, the story of the Ramones. It starts out with their humble beginnings in Forest Hills. I think it was Forest Hills.
Yep.
New York. And it's really well done. It has interviews with them all. It's a lot of information on here that I didn't know before. I mean, the diagnosis of Joey that he would, I mean, when he was a little kid, the doctors told his mom that he would basically not be able to function in society. He would, he would have to have someone care for him, for his whole life. And yeah, it's really interesting. The thing that really comes through is out of the four original members, it seems like the drummer Tommy Ramone was the only one that was halfway normal. The other three, man, they had some issues. And yeah, it's a really well done, and it really gets personal. The Joey and Johnny, Johnny didn't really like Joey, and he really from the get-go he didn't want him in the band. And but yeah, they stuck it out. It's really surprising that they stuck it out so long.
I think Tommy Ramone produced Tim by the Replacements, and and most people know this, but if you're younger or newer to the Ramones, they're not brothers. Ramones was they got the name. There's a Beatle connection there, where Paul Ramone was Paul McCartney when there was an early period of the Silver Beatles and early Beatles when they would, like I think it was Johnny Moondog with John Lennon and Paul McCartney used Paul Ramone. They made these kind of rock and roll names, and that's where the Ramones got their name apparently. Do they talk about that in there? Do you remember? I don't know.
I think they did, yes.
Yeah.
I know Joey was a big Beatles fan.
Yeah. It's funny when you think about that because everyone has this illusion that all these punk bands or grunge bands were just, they turned everything off. Maybe they all hated prog, that's fine. But they loved the Beatles, they loved the Stones, they loved the Kinks, the Who, and that was sort of a rootsy thing. In fact, like the Who and the Kinks were almost more related to what the punk bands were doing than, say, the Beatles and Stones in a way at the time.
Yeah.
But we could get into that. Okay, my next one is a little different. It's a surreal biopic because it's not really a biopic. It's a movie by Todd Haynes of a lot of short, fictitious influences of Bob Dylan, and it's called I'm Not There. Now, this is a movie that I know people that just can't stand this film, and I think when I saw it in the theater, it's so amazing. Todd Haynes is a really interesting, creative filmmaker, and there's these series of vignettes. Each section might be, I don't know, I can't remember if it's 20 minutes to a half hour, but different people are playing Bob Dylan or an image of Bob Dylan. You have you have Kate Blanchett playing Bob Dylan, and I think Kate Blanchett is the best of all the Dylans. She's got this period, the 1966.
She's a great actress.
Yeah, there is Kate Blanchett right there. Look at that picture of Kate. It's so great.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But not everyone is supposed to look like you got Richard Gere right there playing a certain Dylan. I mean, he looks nothing like Dylan, but that's not the point. You got who else is in here? You have Juliana Moore, Bruce Greenwood, David Cross. David Cross is, the famous bit of there's that famous interview that you can see on, or not interview, that it's John Lennon and Dylan in the back of the limo, and they're like fucked up, stoned out of their ass, and talking weird shit. And David Cross is playing the poet Allen Ginsberg, like running along the car and different things. It's hysterical. There's Heath Ledger plays an early kind of the early poet of Dylan, poet part of Dylan. So you got all these different people doing Christian Bale as well. You got doing sort of an illusion of Dylan. Again, they're not trying to copy Dylan. They're not trying to sound exactly like Dylan, but it's surreal, experimental. It's an artsy film, but really a cool film. I'm Not There. One of the best films of the year, New York Times critic. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, what's the name of that movie?
I'm Not There.
I'm Not There. Okay. Yeah, I have several Bob Dylan DVDs, but I've never seen that. I do remember hearing about it though. All right.
Dick, it's
Yeah,
yours.
the last one that I actually watched this weekend, and this was the first one that I watched out of the 4 that I watched, and it's You Weren't There, A History of Chicago Punk, 1977 to 1984. And this is really well done. A lot of documentaries, there's too many talking heads, and that's kind of a drawback for me. But in this one, I mean, they do have the talking heads, people telling what happened and different things. But I mean, let's just put it this way: Whoopi Goldberg's not in it. Not unlike the last Beatles one where Whoopi Goldberg's in there. It's like, what the hell?
Shea Stadium.
Yeah, but yeah, this is really good. I mean, I know a lot of these bands: Naked Ray Gun, the Effigies, Big Black, Articles of Faith. But it starts with the really new. I think the first punk band that they say is some Tutu and the Pirates or something like that. But yeah, there's some really wild bands on this, and it's really good. I would say the Chicago punk scene was started a little bit after the LA, the New York, and even the San Francisco.
Yeah.
But once it got going, by 1980, it was pretty good scene.
There are a lot of smaller. I mean, well, obviously you and I are kind of the coast, and we know people in New York, but there was a lot of Midwest cities that got into the punk scene a little later,
Yeah.
but really strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? A strong one is Ohio. I mean, Cleveland. There was a lot of punk bands in Ohio.
Numero Group is one of those labels that puts out a lot of these kind of weird regional releases.
Yeah.
Soul, urban soul, or punk things or grunge things, and I love learning because obviously some of it just never got out of the area. You're very regional. I'm going to show next. I'm kind of sticking more with Boomer than you are, which you can imagine for whatever reason. Not all, but a lot of it. This is just performances, and I think this is one of the best compilations of starting with 1969 into the mid 70s of some great performances on the Dick Cavett show. And I always liked Dick Cavett because Dick Cavett, he was one of those quirky pseudo intellectual liberals that had a great interview style. If you like that casual style, sometimes his humor would go over. I can see that you probably hate Dick Cavett, but
no, I love Dick Cavett, and I wish there was somebody that was similar to him nowadays. The talk shows nowadays, they're
bombastic either way. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But the thing that one of my favorite things
I have that and I actually was thinking of including that one because it has some great
we can
stuff
talk about this because he did this interview literally the day after Woodstock ended.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
In a studio in New York, and all these artists who had just experienced Woodstock. And remember, this is the year before the movie came out. So it wasn't this national thing, it was more regional. Rolling Stone wrote about it, local radio, obviously. But you had Joni Mitchell there, you had Crosby, you had
Stills.
I think you had Stills there. You had Jefferson Airplane. You had just an amazing group, and Airplane plays, David Crosby plays, Joni Mitchell plays, and they're sitting around in a almost like kumbaya circular studio.
Yeah.
It was like such a hippie time and place. And that video, it's on YouTube, a lot of it, is so good. And then, of course, on here, different interviews, with George Harrison, around the Bangladesh period. He doesn't perform, but you got Janis Joplin, Ravi Shankar, Paul Simon, Sly Stone, Stevie Wonder, Gary Wright, and David Bowie. It's just a great selection. And this is a comp that came out on Shout Factory some years ago of these collected and pulled together. And I just love this, the Dick
Yeah,
Cavett.
that's it. That is a great DVD.
Really vivid color.
Isn't it a 2 DVD set or
I
something?
think it's more than that. It's like,
Oh, okay.
it's, yeah, it's, you know, let's, there you go. I think it's 3 or 4. 1,
Oh,
2,
okay.
3.
3, yeah. It's it's very good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's got some really great songs, performances.
Look at that Sly Stone there. I mean, he
Yeah,
came out of Woodstock. I mean, all these, it was so good. I mean, what a time. And Dick
yeah,
Cavett was a perfect, because he wasn't like, he almost fit in with the counterculture in a way,
yeah. He
Um,
kind of like how the Smothers Brothers did. They weren't hippies, but they weren't squares either.
right, right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, Dick.
Now this is one I intended to watch this weekend, but I didn't get around to it. I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember all the ins and outs. And this is one that I know you're aware of it, and it's
Oh yeah,
Searching for Sugar Man. You know this?
I've seen it a couple times. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's a great what's his name? Rodriguez?
yeah. We just lost him the last year or two as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's about this guy. I think he's from Detroit too. And yeah, he made I think 2 albums that nobody had heard of, but it turned out he was real big in South Africa, and they were like, I guess they made bootlegs down there, and he was like a well known in South Africa, and that's kind of what this film was about. And he had a little resurgence. His albums were re-released. Of course, I bought them on CD. I wasn't buying vinyl at that time.
the Light of the
And
Attic.
they're both really good.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, highly recommend. I think he was a janitor or something in a school.
Something he was, yeah, I think so. And he came and
Yeah.
he toured and he got big crowds and he was touring
Yeah,
until before he died. I mean,
yeah,
obviously before he died, he stopped touring once he died.
yeah. He stopped touring. I don't know why he stopped touring, but
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. I got another concert film here, because I brought a few concert films, not just documentaries. One of my favorite concert films, because I love the sound, I love the recording, is Calexico World Drifts In. They're the band from the Southwest, one of my favorite bands. They do a fusion of spaghetti Western, alt country, very almost like if you would fuse country rock with alt country with Marconi, Italian spaghetti Western soundtracks. This is a live show, and it's such a great sound. This is recorded in London at the Barbican, and they brought an entire mariachi band playing with them behind them, and it's a really good. There's like 20 songs on here. It's an hour and a half. Oh, this actually has some bonus material, a little mini documentary stuff. So there's mariachi music with electric, and the main 2 guys in Calexico are Joey Burns, and I forgot the other guy's name. I should have. See, I didn't prep. We didn't prep. But the 2 guys, the drummer and the guitar player, are the primary members, and they brought on different musicians over the edge. Sometimes in their records, they've done a little bit of a trip hop, hip hop thing. So they've really got a very urban sound to them. And most of their album covers have this almost like Latin spray painted artwork. And if you probably know what I mean, coming from, it's like an East LA art that you would see on walls and sometimes on cars and things. There's one of my favorite bands, Calexico. I get all their records, and this is a wonderful concert film. And I think some of it might be on YouTube, but it's beautiful. They had a German guy with them who played with them as well, who played the trumpet, and they do a great version. Is it on here? Of I don't know if it's on this one or not, but on one of their albums, they do a amazing version of Alone Again, or that opening song from the Love album, Forever Changes.
Yeah,
You know what? It's got that Mexicali kind of,
yeah.
yeah, they do an amazing job. And I just fell in love. It was on an EP, and it's on an extended version of one of the albums. It's not on here, unfortunately,
How
but
many albums do they have?
oh God, 6, 7, 8, something like that. But anyway, Calexico.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some of their songs, but I've never really dove into an
I think
album.
it's called,
I know I would like them
I'll tell you
because
the one to
everything I've
get.
heard by them.
Yeah, I'll like email or text you at some point the one you should get. You don't, there's probably just one. I think it's called Black Light, maybe. Is that the one?
Okay,
Maybe not Black.
yeah,
I'll send it to
I'll
you.
I'll start there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
Dick.
my next one is everybody's favorite. I had to include them, and it's hated Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies.
Everyone.
This
That's
has,
Jesus Christ.
yeah, Jesus Christ. Um, you know who Todd Phillips is?
Todd
He
Phillips,
was
the
he was the
director.
director of the Hangover
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, yeah.
He made this while he was a student at New York University.
NYU. Yeah,
Yeah, NYU, yeah. And yeah, this is Todd Phillips' first film.
I didn't
And
know that.
it's
Intent.
basically when Gigi Allen got out of prison in Michigan, I guess Todd Phillips fronted him some money and had him he took a bus to New York, and they filmed this documentary, and it's to say it's interesting would be an understatement, but yeah, it's a tragic. I mean, this guy, he's a mess. I mean, maybe the biggest mess ever in rock and roll. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's even people that don't like him, it would be hard to turn this off. It's kind of like looking at a train
Car
wreck, you
crash.
know? Yeah,
Okay. You know, I'm
yeah.
realizing that people who are watching this video now, I feel my choices are, I'm such a pussy in my choices here. You're going for the hardcore stuff. I'm going for the like just beautiful sounding.
Well, you're a beautiful guy. That's
I
why.
know.
That's why you got all the subs and.
Oh, that's no. Anyway, but
Oh, Norm doesn't have that many subs.
no, Norm doesn't have any subs either,
Yeah.
does Dick.
Okay.
God, okay, I'm going totally lightweight. I'm going for like college rock. You know the term college rock? Or
Yeah,
math
REM.
rock, or it's kind of, don't you just hate all these friggin' subgenres that have come around? And
Yeah, it's kind of
a lot of them came
no
around.
nobody called it that shit back in the
No,
day,
but
you
in the
know.
90s and 2000s, there were a lot that I just friggin' missed raising my son, I guess. Like, give me a break. Shoegaze and college rock and slow gaze and
Yeah.
shoegaze and slowcore and softcore and
Yeah.
whatever.
In the
Um,
90s, I kind of checked out for various reasons, and I really wasn't into music all that much. Probably I was the first part of the decade, but the later half of the 90s, I wasn't really into music. I started getting back into it in the 2000s, but
well,
yeah, I know what you mean.
this band is one of the first bands, aside from the typical boomer bands, that I brainwashed my son to get into when he was growing up, because there's a certain thing that, in fact, this band has done some children's records, and the band is They Might Be Giants, and this is gigantic, and this is A Tale of Two Johns in the band. These guys are friggin' boy geniuses. In the late 80s, they came out of that. They were part of the New York East Side thing, but they almost didn't fit in with the arty crowd of the Lounge Lizards, which is more on the jazz side, the avant-garde artist, the Bill Laswells, the Anton Fier, that whole East Village thing that was happening. But they were part of that. But they started the thing in the late 80s, way before the internet and stuff. It was called Dial a Song. And every day you'd call the number, and they were Brooklyn based, I think, at that point, before Brooklyn was the trendy, thing it is now. And it was cheap then, because people who didn't want to or couldn't afford to even live in Manhattan would live in Brooklyn. And Dial a Song, my buddy who was living in New York at the time turned me on to it. Every day they had a different song. It was a short, like minute song or whatever, 2-minute song. And you could call up and hear the song. And these guys are geniuses in the way they play multi-instruments, drums, electric guitar, piano, accordions. I think these guys are brilliant. And they did the first song I heard, it's a song called Anita Ang, no, Anna Ang, A-N-G. Something about their music, it's catchy, it's complicated, it's almost mathematical in style. Years later, they did a bunch of kids records. They got signed for I think 3 albums, maybe, or 4, maybe 3, for Elektra Records. And their first one, Flood, to me is a masterpiece. 1990 Flood. There's something about it. I saw them. It's the first show I took my son to see at the Fillmore to see them. And this is a documentary, obviously, with them. And they have a certain comedy edge too, and a quirky edge. They're almost like math wonks. They're almost like the guys that would load the projectors and audio visual in class when you were a kid. You know, that were the nerds. These are the two nerds of rock and roll. And there's interviews with a lot of different people who were around that scene at the time. It's a little kitschy at time. It's a little self-important, but in a funny way. They're never too serious, really. They don't take themselves too serious. So it's not this major thing of we have to talk about They Might Be Giants, but a movie by A.J. Schnack, a movie about They Might Be Giants, gigantic. And that's from a film. There was a film called They Might Be Giants. I think it was Lee Remick and what's the guy who was in
Was it a war movie or something? Or
no, it's about kind of this couple that are, I think they were kind of in fact, do I have it? Keep talking. You go next and I'll pull it. Anyway,
yeah,
based on that movie with the guy from
I didn't know Brooklyn is
the guy
trending
that
now.
played the guy that played oh God, the guy that played Patton in the movie.
George C. Scott.
George Scott. Now you talk while I'm looking for this.
Yeah, I remember in the early 90s, they had a song that was real popular on K-Rock. And it's probably off of that first album you were talking about. But yeah, I don't remember the name of it. But anyways, my next film is the mayor of Sunset Strip.
Here you go.
And
I'm going to show you this. Sorry. It's there they are. They Might Be Giants. I think they're crazy because he thinks he is Sherlock.
I remember that film now. Yeah.
He thinks he's Sherlock Holmes. Oh, Joan Woodward. I'm sorry, not Lee Remick.
Yeah.
Joan Woodward. Anyway, it's an interesting film. That's where they got their name. Okay, sorry about that. Dick.
You know this movie?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's Rodney.
Yeah, the mayor of Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
The Rodney Bingenheimer. He's actually the first person that ever played a lot of bands. He was the first person to ever play the Ramones on radio, even though they were in New York.
He's gotten beaten up lately with all this abuse shit he was doing. But
say that again?
He's gotten beat up, not figuratively, about all these like young little girls he was hitting up on and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
We might as well say that because someone in the comments would bring that up anyway.
Yeah, this is the album cover of Rodney on the Rock Volume 2.
Rock?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good documentary. And I remember watching this. It's been a while, but I watched it. The first time I watched it, my wife sat down and watched it. So if my wife watches a documentary on this kind of music, it's usually pretty good because she doesn't have the patience for this kind of stuff. And as it's going on, she asked me, she goes, "Why is he so sad?" And there is like an underlying emptiness or sadness to his life. I mean, he surrounds himself with all these, Coldplay, David Bowie, no doubt. But there's kind of like you get this feeling there's an emptiness to his life. And
not a happy story, but it's an interesting story, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me of.
But yeah, he seemed to like young girls.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go now with another traditional documentary, but a beautiful documentary. We mentioned a little while ago about Talking Heads, and that movie directed by Jonathan Demme. Now, Jonathan Demme has a great kind of yin yang career. Obviously, he did Philadelphia and he did Silence of the Lambs, but he did a series of music videos. The biggest one, obviously, is Talking Heads, that great concert film, or faux concert film. They had a live audience and they filmed it over several days. Great film. He also did one called Storefront Hitchcock, a documentary performance of Robin Hitchcock. But he did this movie, Heart of Gold, Neil Young.
Yeah.
This is just Neil alone. And I think is this at the Ryman Theater in Nashville? I think it's at the Nashville. And it kind of revisits, obviously, it's not just songs from Harvest, but that kind of country
It
thing.
has that feel to it, though,
It's a
doesn't it?
very Harvest Moon feel. He's guitar
Yeah.
on the stage, beautifully shot. Obviously, Neil Young is a perfectionist in terms of his sound, whatever that is, he's a part of it. And I think this is a really good documentary. Again, Jonathan Demme, who did the music film. There's not much else to say about this. There's not a lot of backstage banter or anything. It's really just him performing, no audience, but on the stage at the Ryman Theater, or there's the Grand Ole Opry or the Ryman. Anyway, someone
It's
correct me.
someone somewhere over there. Yeah. I remember him talking about where they filmed it too.
Yeah, it says
Aren't those Stray
it's the
Gators in
Ryman.
it?
It's the Ryman Auditorium.
Yeah.
Definitely. What?
Aren't the Stray Gators in it and Emmylou Harris at one point? Or is it just
No,
him?
I now I haven't seen this in a while. I don't recall that, and I don't
Yeah.
recall that.
Yeah, I have that one too. It's really good. I have a lot of Neil Young DVDs.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about. It's funny. As much as people like him, I'm not one that always sits and watches featurettes and outtakes, unless it's more of the music or something.
You know
So
what?
I,
I'm not much into the extras a lot of times either.
yeah. All right.
Like a lot of people talk up the Criterion. Oh, it's got all these extras. I never hardly ever
How many
watch
got
them.
left, Dick?
2.
Okay.
I got this next one, and then well, whatever.
Yeah.
This next one, I'm sure you don't know this one. It's East End Babylon. It's the story of the Cockney Rejects.
Oh God.
This is fantastic. It's really well done.
That's Steve Harley.
Even if who's Steve Harley?
Who's the guy? Who's the main guy that sang with him? I'm thinking of.
I forget.
No, I'm thinking of. Never mind.
Yeah, I forget their names. I could go look real quick.
No. We
I have a record
no one
over
really
there of
gives a
theirs.
shit. And we have people who are watching who put it in the comments, so we don't care.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say even if you're not you don't know who these guys are, or you're not a fan, you would still enjoy this documentary. It's really good. These are the two main guys, and I think these guys over here. Yeah, this is when they were younger, and this is them now. They're still, I guess, they're back together and they're performing still. But yeah, it's really well done. They were big soccer fans, and so when they played at rival cities in England, there was a lot of commotion and I guess you could say violence and stuff at their shows. But yeah, that one guy on the BBC, John Peel, he championed these guys, and he said, yeah, I'll play your music. And they didn't have anything recorded at the time. They told him they did, but so he goes, yeah, okay, send me your demo and I'll play it. So they had to like get it together. They did this 3 or 4 songs real quick. But yeah, it's a really good and it talks about when they played in LA. They didn't play, they were a band like in the early 80s, and they didn't play LA till like 85 or so. When they played at the Olympic, and by that time they were like doing, they kind of sounded like AC/DC. And it was kind of disappointing to me that they didn't do some of their early stuff. And they addressed that in this film. They said, we kind of blew it when we played Los Angeles because it was the biggest crowd we've ever played in front of. And we didn't acknowledge, the early stuff. But yeah, it's a really good.
The true test of a good documentary is when you can watch it, you don't really give a shit about the topic or the subject, and you still enjoy it and you learn something. I think that's great.
That's what's a good example of that. I remember watching a documentary on PBS on the Carpenters, and I was not a Carpenters fan. And this documentary was so good, and they talked about all these songs, and I really got into the Carpenters after that. And what was really amazed me about that is they had this one single, and it actually had a guitar solo in it, and their fans were complaining that they sold out. And I'm thinking, wow, I never thought of a band like the Carpenters being sellouts, but yeah, it was really good.
That, they made some great records, whatever you say. I was just trying to pull something I just realized, and now I can't find it. Oh, shit. Oh well. Doesn't matter. Oh, I think I loaned some. I hate loaning videos, but now I remember I loaned it, and I hate to loan records or videos because this
Yeah,
is the reason why you never get them back. So don't
I
loan
don't
your
do
shit
that
out.
anymore. I loaned. I had my aunt from England brought over a album, Get Back to Toronto. It was like demos of the Let It Be sessions, and she gave it to me, and I lent it to my friend, and it was like months before I got it back, and it had like a giant scratch on one of the sides. And after that, I go, I'm not lending records out anymore. And people used to call me, oh, come on, Dick. And no, sorry, dude, I'm not. I
I
don't
think
lend out
people used to
records.
say, "Come on, Dick," to you all the time, whether you're loaning something or anything. But I
Yeah,
wanted to shout out that one I loaned is, I think, one of the best documentaries in the last 5 years is the Sparks Brothers, Matthew Vaughn's movie documentary, The Sparks. And if you know nothing about the Sparks, you'll
yeah, I
love
know nothing about them.
watch that doc. It's so good and it's really original. So, okay, I got two more to go, but this is different because this is really a surround record, music DVD surround. And I think,
Love by the
no,
Beatles.
no, it's not that. This is one of the very first true surround albums. And I like the record, surround or otherwise. It doesn't have to be surround. But this is a Super Furry Animals Rings Around the World. When this came out, we had just done some work on our house, and I'd set up a surround system in San Francisco. I no longer have one, and this was the first thing. It happened to come out, and it was released as a DVD, 5.1, I guess. I don't think they called it 5.1, but I don't know what they called it. This is 2002. Um, this has remixes and all. This is a motherfucker of a sound, like crazy shit. It's like going to one of these specially soundscape things or the planetarium when they have, Pink Floyd and
Yeah,
going around you. I love the Super Free Animals from Wales band. They do sort of a pop psychedelic electronica thing. And there's some swirling shit and some loud thumping bass. And I tell you, I probably will never be able to hear this in the same way. I should play it here. But when I had that center 5 point round and the videos on the screen, it's just kind of animated things for each song. It's basically like a music video album, but with animation. And it sounds so good. I'll probably never ever in my life hear it again unless I go somewhere else, someone who has a great surround system. But I love the record anyway, and the music works without this version. But this is amazing. This is a motherfucker. And
yeah,
so five
they're
point
a really good band.
if you have a 5.1 system, track this down and play it.
Yeah,
It'll blow you out of the water.
that's a good choice.
Yeah, but it was just a record. It wasn't a doc, just
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
thank you.
It's
We have no
it's
rules
music.
here, right, Dick? We don't want rules.
Nah. My last one, like I said, the documentary that I own, that I watched the most, was The Decline of Western Civilization. This one here is a close second. Man, when I got this, I played it a lot. And it's Dig.
Oh,
It's about the Brian Jonestown massacre and the Dandy
I've
Warhols.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. This probably came out around 2000. I had heard of the Brian Jonestown massacre because they were in LA for a time in the mid 90s. And I remember seeing ads for them in the LA Weekly at different clubs. And I remember thinking, man, that is a pretty good name for a band, but I never saw them. And after seeing this, I go, man, I missed out. This is this is really a good documentary on the kind of these two bands that were kind of related, kind of a, I don't know, love-hate relationship. I don't know, competition
I never
between the
saw them.
two.
I never saw them either, but it's same with you. I remember kept seeing their names. and I love that name. They lived in San Francisco for a while as
Yeah, I
well.
think they started in
Yeah,
San
yeah,
Francisco.
and I think if that's the one I'm thinking of, they in the last year and a half or 2 years, there's an updated version with extra stuff of that, and I don't have it. I don't have that on any version, so I don't know if the other version's out yet, but I'd like to see that again because I haven't seen it in
Yeah, it's
a long time.
ex. I like the Dandy Warhols, but man, the Brian Jonestown Massacre stuff is just wow.
Yeah, that
That,
album,
let me. They even say this in the film. They are the best '60s band that wasn't from the '60s.
that Satanic Majesty's Other Request, is that the one?
Yeah,
I think that's their best album. It's just a great, it's a psychedelic.
yeah. In the nine, I mean, look, at the time I didn't think this, but now I think they are one of the best bands from the '90s.
Yeah.
They
And they're still together. And apparently the main guy, I forgot his name, is whacked out.
Yeah, I think they just they were on a tour earlier, or at the end of last year, and I think they imploded, and he got into a fight with the one of the guitar players or the bass player, and yeah,
All right, I'm ending. This is the very last one. I think this is a fitting ending, but this is the version you have to get. I mean, we wouldn't be here with a lot of these rock movies if it wasn't for the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And what's great about this is the 4 complete historic shows. So you don't just get the Beatles segments of the Ed Sullivan Show because you can go on YouTube, you can,
you
there's
get the jugglers and everything, huh?
you get
Yeah,
on, for instance, the first episode, it's like usually a trivia question. Which monkey was on the Ed Sullivan Show when the Beatles first appeared? And of course, the answer is Davy Jones was in the Broadway musical of Oliver. He played the Artful Dodger. So if those of you of a certain age, Ed Sullivan Show would have jugglers and clowns, and Topo Gigio is on here, the little
yeah,
but mouse. But they would do like Broadway, like one song from whatever the Broadway hit was at the moment in New York City. So he's on there. You have the first 3 weeks, if you don't know about this, they were on the Ed Sullivan Show in New York Theater, and then the second week they were at the Fontainebleau, I guess, the hotel in Miami Beach, Florida, in the big ballroom there, and they taped a third one that same time. So they saved the third one to the third week. The next show is in '65 when the Beatles are on, when Paul McCartney does Yesterday alone with acoustic guitar, with the string section. But you got Myron Cohen, Mitzi Gaynor, Alan Rossi, all the like the shtick Jews of the day, the comedians that would
yeah.
be on. You got Frank Gorshin, you got Soupy Sales, you got I said Sheila McRae, but you got Sonny Liston. Oh my God, Cilla Black. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I have that, but I think mine is a different cover.
So you have the commercial, you got from beginning to end. And
Yeah,
it's a great time capsule of what we experienced in 1964 in February, and then we just celebrated, what, 60 years from that first one. But this is a great fitting ending to this video. So any last words, Dick?
yeah. There's a Rolling Stones
There is.
version of
Yeah,
on the Ed Sullivan Show.
I don't have it.
No, that was pretty good, man.
Pretty
We
good.
need to do this more often. I know
All
you're
right.
busy, but
We'll have a big Dick adventure next time with Dick and Norm's movie talk. So see you next time, losers.